Sabina Simonson, Outreach Services and Volunteer Coordinator for the Talbot County Free Library, and you are watching the Talbot County Free Library presents the kickoff to Talbot Goes Purple. That's right, I am all in purple. Of course, I even bought purple lipstick this morning just for the occasion. And why, you will ask, am I all in purple? Because the man whose brainchild this fabulous idea is in the house, Sheriff Joe Gamble. Let me tell you a bit about him. He is serving his first term as Sheriff of Talbot County after having served with the Maryland State Police for over 27 years. During his state police years, he has served as a uniformed patrol trooper, undercover narcotics investigator, and a homicide investigator, and later the commander of the statewide Maryland State Police Homicide Unit. And may I add, he's also a television star because I was watching Forensic Files on Headline News Channel. And who do I see? Sheriff Joe Gamble, I think with hair then, right? Before he had this manly Bruce Willis look. Joe founded the Talbot Goes Purple drug education and prevention campaign that helps to educate students, parents, and grandparents about the dangers of prescription opiates and the heroin epidemic. He and his wife Mary have been married for over 30 years. They have 4 children, all of them adults and healthy, and please give a huge shout out to Sheriff Joe Gamble.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thanks for coming out tonight. Tonight I want to kind of talk about just a little bit about last year. We'll touch a little bit about last year's campaign, where we are as a county, where the state is right now in the fight, and kind of talk about some strategies that we're trying to employ here, what we think is working, what we realize isn't working. So with that, we'll get started. So how many people here? I hope everybody has an idea of what Talbot Goes Purple was last year. Does anybody not have an idea? Okay, great. Well, we got a couple that don't. So I'm going to tell you kind of a short story. Once I was elected about almost 4 years ago now. Right before that, I started interviewing kids that I had coached in high school at Easton High. I coached at Easton High for about 12 years, coached lacrosse there. So those kids are now in their mid to late 20s, the first round of kids that I started coaching. And what I came to find out about 5 or 6 years ago when I was still a trooper, that some of those kids were now addicted to heroin, addicted to pills, were really struggling. So right before I took over as sheriff, I actually met with some of those kids. I met with a dozen kids to start, and I said kids that were in their 20s. And during that time, they knew me as a coach. So I'd be like, hey, this is Coach Joe. I'd like to get together with you for a cup of coffee or lunch or something. And they're like, sure. So we get together and we talk, and we started talking about how they got to where they were, addicted to heroin. All these 12 first kids that I talked to, these 20-somethings, were all addicted to heroin, all live in this community. And what I learned really opened my eyes, and it opened my eyes that people just don't understand the path to addiction, the path to heroin, and how our kids are getting there. Another key thing for me was in my first year, I spoke in front of about 400 people at a fundraiser, and I asked folks, I said, raise your hand if you've talked to your kids about drinking and driving. What did you expect to happen? 400 hands went up, right? Because everybody's talked to their kids or loved ones about drinking and driving. I said, all right, raise your hand if you talk to your kids about texting and driving, or your loved ones, or your grandchildren. Every hand in the room went up. And then I said, raise your hand if you talk to your kids or your loved ones about prescription opiates, prescription pain pills. About 11 hands went up. It was then it like struck me like a brick that, oh, and I also asked, raise your hand if you know that we have a heroin problem in Maryland and in Talbot County. Most of the hands went up. It's like, so most people understand that we have a heroin problem, that we have people addicted to heroin in our community, but they don't understand about the pills. Because I haven't met one kid, in interviewing all those kids and the countless kids that, young people that I've talked to since then, not one of them went from alcohol to heroin, not one of them went from marijuana to heroin. Every single one became first addicted to prescription opiate pain pills. Prescription opiate pain pills are what kind of drug? Opiate. Heroin is an opiate. It does the exact same thing to our brains. Kids get fooled, and I don't want to get too far into it, into this part of it, because a lot of you know this, but one of the kids that I actually interviewed was in college. He had a hangover. He was in a fraternity, had a hangover. When his fraternity brother said, he was complaining about the hangover to his fraternity brother, and his fraternity brother said, crush up, the fraternity brother just had knee surgery. He says, let me crush up one of my Percocets, one of my prescription opiate pain pills. I'll crush it up, you snort half of it, will take your hangover away like that and make you feel better. The Talbot County kid says, what is it? He actually looks at the prescription bottle. And in that 19-year-old brain, male brain, which is, as we know, a 19-year-old male, most men their brains still aren't fully developed, as my wife will tell me. In that 19-year-old male brain, he said, he thought to himself, prescription, doctor's name on it, how bad can it be even though I'm misusing it? So he did it, made him feel better, he did it the next weekend, then he did it the next weekend, then he's doing it twice a week, then he's doing it 3 times a week. He's an opiate addict and he doesn't even know it until he tries to stop. He realizes he's having a problem, he tries to stop, he goes through full-blown withdrawal, he can't stop, the pills run out, he can't steal anymore from other kids on campus, so what's he do? He drives into town, buys heroin on the street, starts snorting heroin. And it kept him from getting sick. I'd like to say the story ended well for him. It didn't. His mother called me after he graduated from college, full-blown heroin addict, went to the house one day because she found some drug paraphernalia, suspected he was involved with drugs, went there, got him help, he went into rehab, and then he relapsed and got caught doing burglaries in Talbot County to feed his drug addiction. Good home, 2-parent home, and that's, in Talbot County, Maryland, that's your typical path to addiction, path to heroin. There's other paths to alcoholism and all that stuff, but we're really talking about opiates and that. So with that, I was like, how do we tell people? If only 11 people raise their hand, how do we get this message out to the community? Every time I've got invited in those early days to speak, there were very small crowds. So I thought, we can't expect people to come to us. Parents are too busy to come to us to learn stuff. So we had to go to the community. How do we deliver something? How do we deliver education prevention message? Because there's very little, if any, prevention education going on in our county. And it's typical of every county in the United States. The budgets for prevention, education are tiny, tiny, tiny. So how do we get that to the community? My son was in college, on a lacrosse team, playing lacrosse in college. And his coach made him take the freshmen. He was a senior captain on the team. His college coach said, you will take these 12 freshmen to the speaker tonight. The speaker that night was a guy named Chris Herron, that was on campus. And he shows up late, typical gamble, shows up late. The place started packed. They're not letting any more people in. So being a cop's son, he knew how to break into the back of the auditorium. So he snuck around because it was the gymnasium actually where they work out. So he takes these 12 little freshmen, they sneak through this back door, and they're going around the backstage when they got caught by security. Chris Herron, the speaker, the ex-NBA basketball star who got addicted to pills and then heroin, sees this confrontation, grabs my son and these 12 little knuckleheads and brought them up on stage with him and delivered a message. Impacted my son so much that my son called me at 10:30 at night and says, hey Dad, and when your son calls you from college at 10:30 at night, it's not good, right? I thought, okay, he's in trouble, he did something stupid, that's what your dads just think, about your sons. Anyway, he's like, Dad, you got to get this guy Chris Herron to come to Talbot County, and this is what he said, and he's telling me all this stuff that I've been preaching to him that probably never really sunk into him, but when Chris Herron delivered it, it sunk in. So that's what started us with Talbot Goes Purple. At the top of this, the Herron Project, Project Purple. As an initiative, it's his initiative. Project Purple is his initiative. And what that initiative is, it starts clubs in the schools. We brought him last September to speak. He spoke to every 8th through 12th grader, private and public schools last year in Talbot County. There were assemblies for the kids, and then we had a community event last year. It was tremendously received. Kids were crying, kids were sharing. about struggles they were going through with addiction, with issues in their families, and it was tremendous. So that was kind of how we molded it, but we took his Project Purple and kind of put it on steroids because we wanted to reach you. We didn't want to reach parents and grandparents in the community. So what we decided to do was engage Tidewater Rotary, who's our partner in this, all the business community, the church community, reaching out to all the different segments of society to go purple. People are like, well, why purple? Chris Herron's Purple, Project Purple, he was giving a talk in high school. There were 5 little girls in the front row all wearing purple shirts. Afterwards, they came up to him and said, thank you for coming to our school. He says, why do you all wear purple shirts? And the little girl told him, well, we're the only kids in our school that don't do alcohol or drugs. And he thought if they had the courage to stand united with wearing their purple shirts, that he was going to start Project Purple, which this year we're kicking off our middle school club. We started clubs in our high school last year. This year we kick off our middle school clubs. We're going to get into that a little bit. So that's kind of the background for those of you who don't know what it is, and what we were trying to do last year. We're going to talk a little bit about that more and the real reason for this, for us doing this. So this is the ugly slide. I just put this in because these numbers just came out. These are the unattended drug and alcohol-related intoxication deaths in Maryland 2017. Opioids are right here in yellow. Look at this path from 2007, the opioid deaths in Maryland, and look what's happened in the last 3-4 years alone. It's gone through the roof. Now, when I was a young state trooper, this number right here, 649, was about how many people were dying on the highways. And when I was a young state trooper 30 years ago, overdose deaths were below car accidents. So this would kill about 650 people, 550 to 650 on our highways every year. So car accidents were always here, overdose deaths were always here. You can see it's flipped, right? Why do you think state troopers and all the cops forever have been writing tickets on the highways, locking up DWIs? Because we want to drive the death numbers down, right? And the reason that we have speed limits and radar guns and all that is because it's unsafe and it causes people to crash and die. So forever we were working on that as cops, right? Keeping the speeds down, traffic safety. We spend billions on our roads, haven't we? Guardrails, cutting trees out, so it's safer, better berms, engineering, all that stuff. Billions and billions of dollars, and slowly those numbers have come down. But look what happened in the meantime while we were all looking at traffic issues only, look what happened with opioids. We're now 4 times, 2280 is almost 4 times traffic fatalities. For most of you, your biggest worry for your kids was dying in a car accident. The biggest worry for moms and dads today is them getting addicted and dying of a drug overdose. 4 times as many kids are dying of overdoses, specifically opioids. If you look at the amount of deaths, opioids is here's the non-opioid related. Look, it's pretty much steady from 2017. It's a little higher, but look how low it is. 649, non-opioid related overdoses. You're talking about 150, 200. It's all about the pills, isn't it? It's all about the pills. So let's go. I'm just going to go flip through some slides here while we talk. This is our lighting at the courthouse. So this year, Talbot Goes Purple. We're kicking off September 5th at the courthouse in the Circuit Court building, the big historic one right in the center of town. 7:30. Everybody's welcome to come. It's short. No politicians except for me get up there and talk. There's 2 of us that will talk for about 5 minutes. We're going to have kids there. This is our Purple Club from last year. They actually kind of look like they're praying over a light. They're actually flipping the switch to turn the courthouse purple. So Easton Utilities is going to do the whole downtown again purple. Star Democrat's given us the whole Labor Day edition. Last year we wrote 27 articles for the Star Democrat. They gave us the whole Labor Day edition, everything from prevention all the way through treatment and recovery. So look for that again, buy a copy of it. And we're going to get, they're committed to helping us get our message out. Easton Utilities is committed. So what we're asking you as a community to do is come September 5th, wear a purple shirt. There'll be purple shirts you can buy. They're we sell them at cost, or maybe 50 cents over cost. All that money comes back. While we're talking about money, all of our donations go to Midshore Community Foundation. The sheriff does not have anything to do with the money, or sheriffs get locked up for that kind of stuff. Lucy Hughes from Tidewater Rotary handles the money, handles the bills. But any donations or the 50 cents that we make on the shirt goes back into the Talbot Goes Purple program for educational efforts and our school clubs. This year we kick off at our Easton Middle School and St. Michael's Middle School. And we're working on with St. Peter and Paul about kicking off clubs. So in those clubs, the kids last year, and you'll see some slides in here, what they did, they had different contests. These are just some talks, some kids, it's a brownie troop that I talked to. But what they had some contests, like door decorating contests in school, who had the best messages, which is really great, because when you think about it, 4 years ago when I was ending my state police career, I was actually accused in the newspaper of making up the opioid epidemic. So, well, I've lived in this community for X number of years and I don't see anything like this. And I thought, holy cow, how much work do we need to do to educate a community that's actually denying that there's an issue? You can't deny that. Those are people, every one of them, those 2282, that's not a guess, that's not an estimate. Those are the 2,282 people, actually their bodies went to Baltimore for an autopsy. And a medical doctor determined that they died of whatever they died of. We were sticking our heads in the sand. And people just didn't know, right? People just didn't know. So, we're getting the clubs rolling in the schools, have these cool contests. We got our churches motivated. We got a bunch of churches going purple. Joanne Muller is one of the ladies here, is on Joanne's team. They went to the schools last year before school started. I think they're going Wednesday. They have a team of prayer warriors that go to each school and pray for every one of the schools. Pray for the kids, the staff, that this message would get through to the kids. And so we're reaching out to all those different things, because what I learned early on is that people aren't going to come to us, we've got to go to them. We've got to go to the congregations, we've got to go to the business community. For instance, Easton Utilities last year, they do these lunch and learns, right? So they get so many credits in-house if you're an employee, and you have to get so many credits per year. So at lunchtime they would come and we trained all of their employees in the path to addiction, what to look for, all that stuff. We did that with Shore Bank shares, Shore Bank, with the Shore Bank shares. So I gave 120 some talks in the month of September alone. We had other people. We bring people that were addicted. I got a good friend, he doesn't mind me using his name, his name is Bruce, who struggled with this. His brother died of heroin addiction. He struggled for many years. He's a great speaker. We bring him out to teams. So we go to the football games, we go to the basketball games at the high school, and we ask them to go. These are just some of our messages from last year. There's our courthouse. I'm going to skip through and try to find some of our kids. This is Talbot Praise. Chris Herring's down there on the bottom. A good looking guy with hair. So we would get invitations last year to go to our sports game. This is Pop Warner football. So one of the businesses donated a bunch of purple footballs with a message on it. Got out there, we were able to deliver a message to the kids. We actually brought to Easton High School and St. Michael's High addicted people who were in recovery, who went to that school and played that sport to share a message with them. So for instance, the girls field hockey team, I contacted this woman named Ashley. Ashley's a wonderful woman in our community, and she told this story. We asked the coaches, we would give them a couple $100 for the teams. They would put a purple ribbon in their hair or buy purple socks for their team, and that was their purple game. We bring our table and our stuff, and before the game we called all the parents and all the kids out of the stands, and both teams came together and we gave a talk. And the bald guy, me, introduced this girl Ashley, and this is what she said. She looked at all those parents and she said, I was a perfect child, basically a perfect child. She had a 4.0 in high school. She had 2 parents in the home. She said, I got a full scholarship to college. I went to college, played field hockey in college, became an All-American, won a national championship. He broke her. And she said, I became an addict for 7 years. I was standing next to her, watching the crowd, and there was a dad in the back who's standing there like this, like I would have done. Like, okay, this is a waste of time. Came here for a field hockey game and got this little bald guy. And I was watching, and she's telling the story, and he was, by the end of it, he was like this. Like, holy cow, that could be my daughter. So we need to take the message to the people, not expect the people to come to us. So that's what we're trying to do with Talbot Goes Purple. So we were doing YMCA games, football games. I mean, we were hitting them all. We also produced 50 educational messages. These aren't Joe Gamble's ideas. These are science-based study from doctors. A lot of them came from SAMHSA. Don't ask me what SAMHSA stands for, but it's the federal government, addiction, substance use disorder, national consortium that does studies on this stuff. Think about that one. Overdoses are now the leading cause of death in people under 50 in the entire United States. It's the leading cause of death for people, and that number's climbing. I bet you by the end of next year or the following year, it'll be the leading cause of accidental death for everyone in the United States, because elderly are dying. We've only had two people. Sadly, we've had 2 people die this year so far in Talbot County of a fatal opiate overdose. Our numbers this time last year are around 7, so our numbers are dropping. Our surrounding counties are going up, and it's not because of purple. And we'll talk about what I think that it's because. But the first one that died in our county is 56 years old. So this isn't about the young. This is about when we get older, we get more medicine, right? We have more surgeries, we have more pain, we take more pain medicines, right? It's affecting every age group. Some of our Talbot praise. This is the lighting of the courthouse. It's our cool purple cars. If you see these cars running around, these police cars, I got 3 or 4 of them now, and they're all our school resource officers. So we park them in front of the schools every day for school. So we have a school resource officer at Easton Middle School this year. Clint Bordley, some of you know him. He just retired from Easton Police. Great guy. One at St. Michael's High, Middle High, and one at Easton High School. So they're also sharing this message, and we got the cars done just to remind the kids every day when they walk past it about this problem. Some of our messages, and this is just, a lot of these slides are just to show how well our community responded last year. I mean, I'm a tough guy, but I was brought to tears. You know, I investigated 600 homicides. I'm a pretty tough guy. I was brought to tears last year when our community came together. They didn't turn their back on it. They didn't ignore it. They rallied. This is a group from the hospital. I mean, everybody embraced this, which was just unbelievable. This year, Queen Anne's, Kent, Caroline, us, Dorchester, Somerset, Washington County, Sussex County, Delaware, and I'm missing one, are going purple in September with us. We've been recognized by the governor's office. There's a film crew coming from Colorado to document what we did here this year, what we're going to do here this September. They're doing a documentary on it. It's been recognized by the state of Maryland as one of the promising prevention programs, blah, blah, blah. I can't tell you how many times we've been asked to come to other jurisdictions, out of state, in state, to come tell those communities how we got our message out. This quote, the synthetic heroin part is not my words. I was talking to one of my kids, not one of my children, but the kid I coached. And then he told me, he said, Coach Joe, and it was the kid I was telling you about at that fraternity party, after the fraternity party with the bottle of pills. He said, Coach Joe, if somebody would have told me that what I was snorting was basically synthetic heroin, I would have never done it. And think about that. How many of our kids would actually just try heroin, experiment with heroin? Yeah, but more are going to experiment with those kids. But if we had gotten that message through 10 years ago, Nobody was educating kids 10 years ago about these pills because we didn't know. We as cops, we didn't even know what was going on. Doctors didn't even know what was going on. The addiction rates that were going to happen.
But they caused it. This is caused by pharma. It's caused by
Exactly.
the opioid companies. They pushed it to the doctors. The doctors
You're
are
exactly
addicted.
right.
And so the opioid companies, why aren't these executives in prison? They're the biggest drug dealers of all.
You're exactly right. And once we're done,
This is
once we're done, we're going to talk about that because we're doing some things with Talbot. The county has filed a lawsuit against the opioid manufacturers.
Thank you.
So we'll talk about that after
Thank
the
you.
program. But what we need to start understanding is that those pills in your cabinets, 80% of kids that become addicted to opiates, prescription opiates, get them from where? They don't home or grandma's house or their aunt's house. Or I have kids, my kids bring their friends to my house, and I've got them and one of those kids goes up and steals a couple pills. That's where it starts, 80%. So if 80% of kids who are addicted to heroin started in a medicine cabinet, if we just, as adults, lock that stuff up, dispose of it, bring it to the sheriff's office, drop it in there. We've got a drop box 24/7. It's one of those, like a bank deposit thing. You can throw them in there, we destroy them. The detention center right next door to us has a mailbox 24/7. You can drop them in there. State police barrack 24/7. You can drop them in. Get rid of them. That's part of the solution, right? We can get rid of them. I'm teaching my kids, I'm teaching the kids I coach, and every kid I can say that, listen, those pills are synthetic heroin, that's what it is. Scientifically, it might not, but it's an opiate. They're the same drug, right? And I think if we get that message across, I think far less kids will be experimenting with it. They're just some pigs. So what else is going on in September? We are, after we kick off on the 5th, on September 25th and 26th at 6:30, 25th at Easton High, 26th at St. Michael's High, 6:30, we're bringing one of the Wahlberg clan in. You guys, some of you guys might not know who the Wahlbergs are. A couple of the Wahlbergs are movie stars. They're like, most of them play cops or something at some point in movies and whatnot. Their little brother is coming to Talbot County. They developed a film called If Only. This film will also be shown to every 6th through 12th grader in Talbot County, private and public schools, during assemblies earlier that day, and then we have public sessions those nights, one in Easton, one in St. Michael's. It's about a 30-minute movie they'll watch, and then there's a discussion about it, so we're really excited to bring them into the schools. Every penny, none of your tax dollars are being used for any of this. Every penny of this has come through donations from businesses and people and foundations in our community. So it's exciting that, it doesn't matter if they're private or public school, we've organized it, worked it out that every 6th grader through 12th grader will hear this message. The schools kick off next week. They actually don't come back to school right after Labor Day, but next Wednesday, Kelly Griffith, the school superintendent here in Talbot County, has a back to school day. We did it last year, we're doing it this year. We gave every bus driver, janitor, teacher, office worker, everybody that's employed by Talbot County Public Schools got one of our free Talbot County, or Talbot Goes Purple t-shirts. They actually have a big rally. And then what they did in the schools was they had Purple Fridays during the month of September. So the teachers would wear their shirts, the bus drivers would wear their shirts, everybody would wear their shirts, and then the teachers would concentrate and try to give messages on those Fridays. So that's when they would have their contests about drug addiction and the results of all that stuff and what they were, what the clubs were trying to do. So it was really fun, to see everybody dressed up in purple, all our teachers united, all our staff united, and trying to deliver those messages every Friday. So you'll see a bunch of teachers and stuff walking around in purple here in a couple of weeks. We're recognized by the governor's office, my wife and my eldest son. An award we got. It's one of the schools. So every school also had a purple day, even the little kids. The middle schools, we brought speakers in. We brought addicted people into the middle schools, people that were addicted in recovery. And they did all kinds of fun stuff. This is one of my favorite quotes from Chris Aaron. Chris was a basketball star. He played for the Boston Celtics. He got addicted to prescription pain pills, and he actually became a heroin addict as an NBA basketball star. He tells a story to the kids that he actually had to run out before one of the NBA basketball playoff games because his drug dealer he had to call a second drug dealer to get his fix before a game, and he was shooting heroin into his veins 10 minutes before the game started. Obviously, his whole career crashed. He got arrested, got in a bunch of trouble, got help. He's been in recovery. I think he just celebrated his 10th year in recovery. He was really powerful to kids. And he asked the kids this. He said, if you were a kid, would you look up to you? And what he said to the kids was, how many of you have younger brothers and sisters? And all these kids raised their hands. And he said, if you were a kid, would your little brother looks up to you, your little sister looks up to you, don't they? Are they proud of what you're doing on Friday and Saturday night? Would you do that in front of your little brother or sister? I mean, kids were weeping. I mean, I'd never seen it still chokes me up, but I had never seen anything like it, the impact he had on some of these kids. Now, is that lasting? No, we got to keep hammering it, right?
Yes.
His talk last year is going to fade in their minds, but we've got to just keep hammering them at everything, whether they're involved in the drama club, the sports club, or no club. We got to keep hammering. This is one of our sayings with purple. These posters are in our schools, they're in our school resource officers' offices. This is what you can do. Lock your meds up. I'm just going to flip through these real quick. This is the high school football game, Eastern Carolina. They invited me after the game to come down and give a talk. And since I've coached a lot of kids, I've been coaching for about 20 years at the high school. I did about 12 years. And I told them when I got out there, I said, listen guys, and they knew, they were wearing purple socks, both teams. They knew what the day was all about. And I said, listen guys, here's the deal. I said, I see the linebackers and the defensive backs and these guys. I said, I can tell you a kid that played defensive back at both of your high schools. I could name a name and tell you this kid played here 10 years ago and he's now dead. I can tell you that the quarterback from Easton High X number of years ago no longer has a leg because of his addiction. So I kind of broke it down to say, listen. And then they asked me if I'd lead them in a prayer afterwards. We're trying to reach them. We're trying to get to them the best way we can. Here's our prayer warriors at the country school. Before school started last year, they'll be out next Wednesday. This is right before the kickoff. This is the start of our Purple Club. Now, we started our Purple Clubs in the summer a year ago, and we had about 15 or 20 total kids, and then they started to grow. We're hoping they're going to continue to grow. This is right before the courthouse lighting, and there's some of our, this was a stat that was accurate last year. One of our deputies, our K-9 man, one of the contests they had in the school, sign making contest. I think a lot of this stuff is just some more pictures. So, what are we doing this year different? Last year we touched on the basics. 80% of kids started with heroin, came out of your medicine cabinets. Lock up your medicines, bring your medicines to us. It was the very basic to bring awareness and education. Our barrels exploded. Our drop boxes filled up. The community was hearing us. I think we're starting to get that message in. This year, we're diving a little deeper. We want to educate parents and grandparents about the predispositions to addiction, right? So we teamed up with our mental health agencies. We teamed up with Eastern Shore Mental Health Association. So you guys are getting the first sneak peek at it. Our messages last year were leading cause of death for everybody over 50. More than 1,000 people each day are treated in emergency rooms for misusing prescription painkillers. This is last year's message. We still have those messages. We're still putting those out. Each day, more than 650,000 people. There are more than 650,000 painkiller prescriptions dispensed in the United States. Some of you guys remember those. This year, we're getting more into the mental health aspect because mental health and addiction is intertwined. It's all the same. I mean, it's all a big ball of mess. So we're trying to educate parents on the predispositions. And some other facts. More than 20% of people prescribed opioids for chronic pain misused them. It's pretty stunning. More than 20%. People with a substance use disorder are twice as likely to suffer from anxiety and other mood disorders than the general public. Teens who live with a mental illness are more prone to dispense dependency on prescription pain pills. 1 in 4 teens report having abused or misused a prescription drug at least once. Adolescents are 2.5 times more likely to use drugs if their parents use drugs or alcohol. Emotional abuse increases the risk of adolescent substance abuse and addiction by 2 to 3 times. I mean, there's 30 more messages that we're trying to see. So what we did was we just delivered about 60 more banners. So September 1st, you'll see these banners go up with all different messages all across the county. You'll see them in front of the fire stations, the police stations, banks. I mean, they're going to be everywhere. And then we're going to run those messages just like the messages you saw on here on our slideshow. We're going to be running them on our Facebook page. For those of you who Facebook, they're going to be on our website. And we're asking people to share them, if you know how to share on Facebook, or if you tweet, or you Snapchat, or you all the other crazy stuff they do. Because we really want to educate and bring these things out. You know, bullying is a big one. We have one on bullying that is genetics. Genetics account for half of a person's risk for substance use disorder. So we need to educate parents. Listen, my grandfather was an alcoholic. My dad wasn't, but my grandfather was. So there's some genetics in there that aren't the greatest thing for my family. So I need to know that as a parent. You know what I mean? I need to know that and understand that and take that into account when I'm raising those youngsters. We see it all the time. People that I was arresting 25 years ago, my office is arresting their kids or their grandkids because it follows, you know, is it genetics? Is it the way they're brought up? Is it a combination? It's probably a combination of all of it. Bullying is a big one in our schools. Young people who are bullied are twice as likely to use substances as teens who haven't been bullied. So it really raises the level of how we should respond to bullying. If our kids are bullied, right? If he's bullying other kids, or if our kid's getting bullied in school, it really needs to send a red flag for me as a parent. If my kid's getting bullied in school, holy cow, this could cause my kid, this definitely causes my kid increased risk of substance use disorder or substance abuse or addiction, whatever you want to call it. I need to take action. I can't just say, oh, this is a part of growing up. Does that make sense? So we're really excited. Whoa, I really ran over my time, didn't I? We're really excited about bringing these new messages this year. Keep educating. Is it the answer? It's not the answer, right? It's not the answer for the person who's addicted right now. But I think a dad summed it up well for me. I was at the high school football game. It was one of our purple games, and I was up there. We were handing out our pamphlets, and please take as much of this. And if you have some place that you need 1,000 of them, call me. I'll get you 1,000 of them. But I'm talking. This dad approached me. He says, "Hey, Sheriff, I just want to thank you for what you're doing. This purple thing's really great. It's an educational campaign." I was like, "Thanks." He says, "My son plays on the football team." He says, "My son says it won't work." He said, "We were driving home after practice, picked him up from practice. We're driving home, drove through Easton. They were going to get something to eat." He said, "We drove through it, and the kid saw the purple lights." He said, "Dad, those purple lights aren't going to do anything." He said, "Why not, son?" They engaged in conversation. He said, "For the next hour, that's what we talked about." So for an hour, they talked about substance abuse. They talked about addiction. They talked about opioids. Like, at the end of the hour, the kid looked at the dad and said, "Dad, I guess you're right. I guess it might work." Because they just spent an hour talking about it. That's all we want you to do is have conversations, spread our message. Have conversations, teach your children, teach your grandchildren, teach anybody around you, lock up those meds, have discussions about this stuff. All the studies show, as grandparents, as parents, you know, sometimes I know, Mary and I, more Mary than me, because this crazy life that I've had with all this homicide stuff, but all the studies show, even when you don't think you're getting through to your kids or your grandkids, all the studies show the more you talk to them, the better the chances they've got. If you don't talk to them about it, then, you know, who knows what's going to happen. But talk, have those conversations, talk about it. That's the best study there is. sit down, have dinner, and talk to your kids, talk to your grandkids, talk to your loved ones. I appreciate you guys having me. I'll stick around for questions. I'll stay all night if you want to. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Now the library is playing along. We have purple library cards for September because September is actually National Library Card Sign-Up Month. So anyone who gets a new library card in September is actually receiving a purple library card. And I just had a great idea as I'm listening to you talk. And I'm thinking, Fridays, Purple Fridays is the big deal. Anyone who comes into the library on the Fridays in September and wears purple will get a book bug for a free book from our book sale. I'm going to wear one of your bracelets because that goes really well with my purple outfit. And thank you all for coming. Now please keep in mind we of course have books on the subject, Nonfiction 362, and we'll see you all at the library. Bye-bye.